So, I've got a wild idea to kick things off tonight. Carlie Irsay-Gordon, if you're listening, call into the show. Seriously. 216-452-8813. We'd love to have you on Round Ball Rants, because what you've been doing down there on the sidelines in Indy, that's leadership in motion. You're not hiding in a suite or waiting for a PR brief. You're out there, headset on, locked in, showing what accountability really looks like. And that's refreshing, especially to the working class. You don't have to bark orders to lead. Sometimes leadership is just showing up where it's uncomfortable and listening anyway. It actually reminded me of somebody the NBA world knows all too well, Mark Cuban. Say what you will about him, but when he sat courtside, you knew that he cared. You could see it in the sweat, the reactions, the arguments with refs. That man showed up. Fans connected with that because visibility builds trust. And that brings us right back to Dallas, because accountability at the top doesn't just belong to owners, it belongs to GMs too. Let's start in Dallas, because this isn't a new headline, it's an old wound that never healed. Nobody suddenly wants Nico Harrison fired. That frustration has been simmering ever since the Luka Doncic trade. Fans never got over it. They saw their generational superstar leave town and decided right then who the villain really was. The rest of us, we've been watching with bated breath, wondering if Harrison was a visionary or just a villain with a plan. But here's where I stand, and I may be just playing devil's advocate here. If you weren't going to fire him then, in the chaos, right after trading Luka, or even in the offseason, what sense does it make to fire him now? The man already survived the fire. He took the heat, made his move, and committed to reshaping this franchise from the ground up. Was it bold? Hell yeah. Reckless? Not even close. Let's rewind a bit. There were legitimate concerns inside that building about Luka's conditioning and his habits. Remember that viral clip after the 2024 Western Conference Finals? Michael Finley pulling the beer out of Luka's hand mid-interview? Mark Cuban later explained it. It wasn't because he didn't want him to drink it. It was because there were cameras everywhere. Just not cool when a player is doing an interview with the beer. End quote. That might have looked innocent, but it said a lot. The organization was trying to protect its image, its player, and its culture, all at once. And Nico Harrison inheriting that balancing act. So when he traded Luka to the Lakers, bringing back Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a 2029 first-round pick, it wasn't a panic move, it was a plan. A bet that defense, structure, and sustainability could outlast one man's brilliance. Now, add the Klay Thompson signing. 3 years, $50 million, future Hall of Famer. Now, coming off the bench. The optics, rough. I get it. But optics don't build culture. Conviction does. And here's the part people absolutely overlook. This isn't even the same Mavericks ownership that hired him. Mark Cuban sold the majority stake to the Adelson-Dumont family, and now Patrick Dumont runs the show. Cuban's still around, but mostly in spirit. Nico Harrison, he's a Cuban guy, trying to build a future under someone else's rules. So when people say Nico's on the hot seat, it's not just because of the record or the roster. It's because he's a holdover from a different era, working for owners who didn't hand him the job. And that's a lonely place to be in sports. He's made questionable calls, no doubt, but they're not reckless. They're calculated. He's not blowing it up for the sake of blowing it up. He's trying to stabilize a team that's spent years wobbling between hype and heartbreak. Dallas fans see pain. I see a process. He's trying to build a system, not worship a savior. That's messy. It's uncomfortable. But that's how dynasties are born. So yeah, question the results, question the fit, but don't question the intention. Because if Davis were to stay healthy, if Christie develops, if that 2029 pick hits, the same people calling for his job, they'll be calling him a visionary. And if it doesn't, well, then at least Dallas will have gone down swinging with a vision. All right, that's the front office therapy session. Let's get back to the court. Because while Dallas sorts out its identity, the rest of the league was busy rewriting theirs. This is your news of the weekend. Before we hit the weekend headlines, quick shout out to the crew keeping me upright through the late night edits and early morning rundowns. Dubby. If you're like me, powering through the weekend means focus without the crash, energy without the jitters. More on them later in the show, but just know, Dubby kept me locked in while the league refused to slow down. 5 quick hits, 5 stories that go deeper than the box score. Let's roll. Marcus Sasser's setback. Depth check for a team that's arrived. The Detroit Pistons are 8-2. Yeah, 8-2. This isn't a feel-good start anymore. It's a statement. But every hot streak gets tested. And this weekend, Detroit hit its first real speed bump. Marcus Sasser is out at least 4 weeks with a hip impingement. Most teams would treat that as a problem. For Detroit, it's a measurement. Cade Cunningham is leading like a vet. Oscar Thompson's defending like he's been here 5 years, and Jaden Ivey's starting to value rhythm over highlights. Without Sasser, though, their change of pace guard, their bench spark, someone has to fill that gap. This is where culture steps forward. JB Bickerstaff has these guys believing, and belief only matters when the depth chart shrinks. 8-2 is impressive. Holding that line when you lose your second unit engine, that's when the league starts taking you seriously. Jalen Green's hamstring and Phoenix's balancing act. Out west, the Phoenix Suns are 5-5, still trying to stabilize their footing. And now they'll have to do it without their star shooting guard, Jalen Green. Green left this weekend's game with a hamstring injury. It's day-to-day, but when your top perimeter scorer goes down, that's more than a minor note. He's been their burst scorer, their shot creator, their pressure release when defenses key in on Devin Booker. Without him, the floor spacing shrinks, and the offense tightens quick. This is a test for Jordan Ott. Can he keep the tempo up without running Booker into the ground? Can the bench carry water while Green heals? And at 5-5, Phoenix isn't broken, but it is brittle. And this is where leadership shows itself. Teams like this either bend and bond, or they start pointing fingers. Mitchell Robinson and the Knicks' silent standoff. In New York, Mitchell Robinson is playing great basketball. Efficient, physical, and quietly vital. But he's doing it without a new deal in place. No extension talks, no traction, just silence. And that silence is loud. Robinson's in the final year of his contract, anchoring one of the NBA's top defensive units, and still waiting to see if the Knicks truly believe in the identity they've built around him. Insider Ian Begley put it best. There's going to be teams with cap space. If he's healthy, he's going to be very attractive on the open market. Maybe the Knicks surprise me, and they do get a deal done in season. End quote. That's not just analysis. That's a warning. Because if New York lets this drag out, they risk turning a foundational player into a free agent with options. Robinson's game isn't flashy, but his impact is. He's a walking paint deterrent, a rebounding machine, and one of the few bigs who still dominates without needing touches. So this isn't just about money, it's about a message. Do the Knicks value their culture enough to invest in the guy who embodies it, or are they already planning the next version of themselves without him? That's the quiet crossroads in New York. Loyalty versus leverage. And it's one the Knicks can't afford to misread. Steph Curry's absence and the cost of consistency. In Golden State, Stephen Curry missed his second straight game with an illness, and the results spoke loud. The Warriors got blown out 129-104 by the Denver Nuggets in NBA Cup play, a loss that felt much about identity as it did about execution. Draymond Green led the scoring with 17 points and 5 from deep. But after that, the offense vanished. The Warriors' young core of Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, and Brandon Podziemski combined for just 15 points on 7 of 29 shooting. And at one point, the Denver starters outscored Golden State's 54-18. That's not just a bad night, that's a spotlight on the gap between the past and the future. Without Curry, the Warriors aren't the machine we remember. They're a team still searching for its next gear. They've got flashes of youth, moments of rhythm, but no anchor when the game turns chaotic. And that's the real cost of consistency. When your leader's not there, every flaw gets magnified. This weekend was a reminder that Golden State's dynasty isn't dying, it's evolving. The question is whether the next generation can carry the weight before the legacy clock runs out. The G League shuffles, development as the new arms race. Buried under the big headlines, the league quietly buzzed with G League assignments all weekend. Pakam Dadiat, Mohamed Diawara, and Gigi Jackson all bouncing between potential and production. It might look minor, but it's a quiet revolution. Teams aren't just drafting talent anymore, they're engineering it. Development programs have become the new competitive edge. OKC, Houston, and San Antonio. They're running their pipelines like startups, refining skill sets instead of chasing the splashy signings. In today's NBA, you don't just build a roster, you have to build a factory. And teams doing it the right way won't have to look to overpay stars later. Here's our weekend scoreboard. The Orlando Magic 123, Boston Celtics 110. Franz Wagner added 27 points, Desmond Bane 22 points and 7 assists. The Toronto Raptors beat the Atlanta Hawks 109-97. Brandon Ingram chipped in 20 points, and the Raptors rallied from 13 down. Milwaukee Bucks 126, Chicago Bulls 110. The Greek Freak with 41 points, 15 rebounds, and 9 assists. The Miami Heat beat the Portland Trailblazers 136-131. Nikola Jovic, 29 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists off the bench. Later in the week, the Atlanta Hawks beat the Los Angeles Lakers 122-102. Mohamed Gaye, career high 21 points. San Antonio Spurs 122, New Orleans Pelicans 117. Victor Wembanyama, 18 points, 16 rebounds, 3 assists. The Cleveland Cavaliers demolished the Washington Wizards 148-114. Evan Mobley had 18 points, 10 rebounds. Tyrese Proctor added 17. The Golden State Warriors 104, Denver Nuggets 129. Kuminga, Moody, Podziemski, 15 points combined. Denver dominant. Memphis Grizzlies 118, Dallas Mavericks 104. Ja Morant, 25 points, 8 rebounds. Dallas continues to slump. Houston Rockets 122, Milwaukee Bucks 115. Kevin Durant dropped in 31 points. Alperen Sengun, 23 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists. Minnesota Timberwolves 144, Sacramento Kings 117. Anthony Edwards erupted for 13 points in 3 minutes. So yeah, the weekend wasn't just about wins or losses. It was about leadership, adaptability, and those fine margins that separate the confident from the complacent. And as always, the teams handling the small stuff right, they're the ones still standing when the lights get brighter. Coming up next, we'll pivot to another segment. Scores give way to momentum as we honor one of basketball's greatest leaders. This is Round Ball Rants, powered by W. Before we talk about anything else tonight and head into the bounce, we have to stop and honor a giant of the game, Lenny Wilkens, a man who didn't just coach the game, he shaped it. He passed away this week at the age of 88, and with him goes one of the most quietly powerful legacies basketball has ever known. Wilkens was a rare breed, a man who did it all. A 9-time All-Star as a player, a Hall of Famer twice over, once as a player and once as a coach, and the architect of the Seattle Supersonics' only NBA championship back in 1979. He played with grace, coached with conviction, and led the kind of calm that made everyone around him better. In total, he coached 2,487 NBA games, winning 1,332 of them, both records at one point in time. But those numbers, they only tell part of a story. What made Lenny Wilkens special wasn't what he achieved, it was how he did it. He led with empathy before it was fashionable. He mentored with patience when others yelled. And he treated players, stars or role guys, like people first and professionals second. Ask anyone who played for him in Seattle, Portland, Cleveland, or Toronto, and they'll tell you the same thing. Lenny didn't need to scream to command respect. He carried it in how he listened, how he prepared, how he cared. And maybe that's what's missing in today's game. We have fiery coaches, we have brilliant minds, but we rarely see that kind of blend between teacher, strategist, and servant leader that Lenny Wilkens embodied. When he took over the Sonics, they started 5-17. He didn't panic. He didn't blow it up. He adjusted. He taught. But most importantly, he believed. And in that belief, he turned it into a banner. And it still would hang in Seattle to this day. He was the definition of leadership without ego. Proof that you don't need a spotlight to make history. He earned everything he got, twice over. And more importantly, he left the game and the people in it better than when he found them. So tonight, this segment isn't just about remembrance, it's about gratitude. For a man who showed us that true greatness isn't loud, it's everlasting. Rest easy, Coach Wilkens. You led with class, you taught with compassion, and you left the game richer than you found it. The wins will fade, the stats fade, but the standard, your standard, that will stay forever. You know, it's easy to talk about greatness like it's permanent. Banners, trophies, rings, but real greatness, that's the stuff that lasts after the lights fade. Lenny Wilkens reminded us of that. Mark Cuban lived it courtside, and right now, Carlie Irsay-Gordon is showing it on the sidelines in Indy. Presence, accountability, and grace under pressure. Carlie, again, if you're listening, that invitation, it still stands. Call into the show 216-452-8813. We'd love to talk about what leadership looks like when it's personal, when it's not about titles or trophies, but showing up where it's hardest. Because that's what this whole night's been about. Leadership isn't the loudest voice in the room. It's the one that stays steady when everyone else is shaking. It's believing when belief isn't convenient. So whether you're rebuilding a franchise, fighting through a slump, or just trying to lead your team, remember, consistency is charisma. Show up, stay grounded, and lead anyway. And if you want to keep these conversations going, hit us up on YouTube. Drop a comment, join the debate, or share your take on what leadership means in today's game. And of course, none of this happens without our partner Dubby over at Dubby.gg, keeping me focused through the late nights and early mornings. Use promo code Round Ball Rants for 10% off of your order. Fuel your focus, no jitters, no crash, just energy that shows up when you need it. My name is Vincent Cooper. I thank you so much for joining me today, and this was Round Ball Rants, where it's not just basketball, it's therapy with a bounce.